some familiar faces there. Hello. Hello to the newcomers. Just a quick reminder, waiting for Amanda Hoca to connect. I think she's having some technical problems to join. She'll be with us in a few minutes. You can ask your questions and of course make comments. She's going to connect in a few minutes. Hello to everyone. Oh yes, I think she's there now. Yes. Hello.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here as well. Really, very nice.
We've had so many questions and comments about you. Everyone is very excited to see you. I didn't know you had so many people who know you actually.
Well, I've got lots of students. I've been in English language teaching in Turkish universities for about 17 years. So I've got lots of students who are graduated and working now.
Hocam, I think you've changed your screen by mistake. Would you
right,
change? Is me change?
I'll try. I'm not sure.
No, the other way around. Yes.
I don't know. Can you see it? Okay, you can see me. I can't. Okay. I can't see myself, but I suppose it doesn't matter.
I don't know. I can see. Normally, you should be able to see yourself, but I don't know why you can't.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
All right. So let me just check the time and wait maybe one more minute, and then we can start. How are you doing? Maybe you can tell us about life in Bursa and yourself a little bit in these days. I'll give a brief information about you, but before that, maybe, you can tell us how you're coping these days.
Right. Well, it's been very different. I must say that. As somebody who likes to be in the classroom and that's the favorite part of my job, is to actually be in the classroom and you're there one day with your students and the next day you can't, and you don't know when you're going to see them again. So that's a little bit that's very strange, but because of this online platforms, that at least we've got some kind of connection with our students again. We're trying as much as possible to keep a sense of normality where our teacher education is concerned anyway, at least to maintain those connections. And actually, I was thinking, okay, I miss classrooms, but now through this kind of idea, through these live TV thingies, Instagram things, that we can actually reach out to a lot more people who maybe pose.
I see. Okay, thank you. I'll just give a brief information about you, but please fill in if I make any mistakes, or if you'd like to add.
Okay.
For our viewers, we have a very special guest today, Amanda Yeşil Bursaç. She graduated from University College London. Then she studied in Gazi Üniversitesi Eğitim Bilimleri Enstitüsü. She had her MA in there. Then she had her PhD in Gazi University. Then she started working at an education faculty in Bolu, Abant Baysal University. Then she started at Uludağ University and ELT department. She is the head of ELT. A lifelong learner, continuing her education in philosophy, as far as I know.
Yes. Oh gosh, did you find that? Oh no. I know. Yeah, that's my professorship present. Okay. Yes, I like studying.
I was surprised to find out that, actually. And then she is the chief editor and also editor in many prestigious journals. She is known to be a very nice professor and very friendly. Their VAs. So that's, I haven't met you face to face, but I can tell that it's true. So we are going to discuss grammar teaching today.
Yes.
There are so many people wishing you all the best, by the way, Amanda Hocam. And let's start with something general. It's okay for you, because we all know that we have English teachers here, and we know the importance of skills. If we are to give a brief description of skills, how would you define skills in English language? Can you please give a brief introduction about that?
Okay, so when I'm defining skills, I like to compare them with knowledge. So knowing, isn't it? It's the information we have in our brain that belongs to us. We've learnt it either at school or through life or from other people. We have this knowledge here. On the other hand, skills is more like knowledge in action. Skills is doing things. Okay, and it's something that can be learned. It's something that can be practiced. It can be something. It's something that can be made better in a way. So, yes, skills are basically knowledge in practice. When it comes to language, then we have our language skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. We have our language knowledge, which is grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, and so on. So that's what skills are doing. Doing.
You know, grammar is very, very important, especially in Turkey. I think it's all around the world, maybe like that. But we give special importance to grammar.
Right.
What makes grammar different from other skills in EFL classes?
Okay. Knowledge. Okay, so it's part of our knowledge that we have in our brain and that we might show it or might not. Okay, so grammar isn't really a skill in itself, but it's the knowledge that we need is part of the knowledge that we need if we want to read or write or to understand what we listen to, or if you want to speak. Okay, so that's part of the knowledge that we need to do that. We can't read and write if we don't know grammar, can we? But the thing is that grammar is, it's not the only piece of knowledge in a language. It's part of the knowledge. It's not the only one. Okay, so I think that's an important thing to remember.
Okay, so it's not like reading, writing, listening, speaking, or some people call grammar as a separate skill. It's part of the language and language competence. Yes?
Right, yes. If we think of grammar as knowledge, grammar is the knowledge, but also vocabulary is knowledge as well, isn't it? Pronunciation, phonological knowledge as well. Those are all the things that we need to know about a language if we want to be able to use it. So, I mean, grammar isn't the only, you see, the knowledge is quite varied. It's not just grammar, okay? There's also, we have to know the words. How do we put the words together? That's, again, syntax, morphology, that kind of thing. So it's part of knowledge.
Okay, so part of knowledge exists in all skills.
Yes.
There we and it's live, maybe we can say, in language, in English language, and takes a great place, great importance in English language, learning and teaching. Right.
Well, the thing is, this comes on to another question that I know you're going to probably ask, is that a little bit in Turkey, is that it's given a lot of importance to. And, well, yes, of course, but grammar is just a means. It should be viewed as a means to be able to communicate in a language. The ultimate goal should be able to listen and understand, to speak with other people, to read and write. Okay, we don't just learn grammar for the sake of knowing grammar. Okay, it's not purely academic. So that's a kind of a little problem that I think we have in Turkey, and I'm sure we're going to expand on that very soon.
Okay, so since we start from there, we continue from that point.
Okay.
Do you think give too much or a lot of importance on teaching grammar in Turkey? As an experienced researcher, would you say that?
Yes, I would. I think we do. I think when one of the, for example, I'll give you a concrete example. One teacher said, as an example of the decline in English abilities in Turkey, what she used to say, well, when I used to teach at high school, I used to be able to get up to the future perfect continuous. Okay, but I can't get there now. Okay, so I think this is an amazing example. You know, I could teach the present perfect continuous, but I can't now. And is that our aim? It's like we sort of very conveniently put English into little containers. Okay, we've taught this one, next one. We've taught this one, the next one. Where actually it shouldn't be like that. Our aim isn't to teach, to be able to teach as far as, I mean, present perfect continuous. I mean, the future perfect continuous, even more complicated. And we're going to have students who are not going to be able to communicate. So I think as teachers, we need to sort of shake ourselves up a little bit, think, you know, what is my aim? Is my aim to teach each of these tenses in English, or is my aim to have students who can use English efficiently to communicate their needs? Okay, and I think it's the second one there.
Okay. So it should be the second one there, but we do give a lot of importance, maybe too much importance on teaching grammar. We do that. What are your observations about that? Why do you think that is? Why do we, as teachers, I mean, why do we give too much importance on grammar and try to give, that's quote unquote, grammar like future perfect continuous to our students at high school?
Easy to teach grammar. Okay, the grammar is very, if you look in a grammar book, a structurally approached course book, you can see that it's divided very nicely into chunks. So we start off with amizar, and then we go on to the present simple, and then we've got all these little easily describable, discrete pieces of language. So it's easy to teach in that way. It's very clean. Okay, the present simple tense, it looks like this. We use it for this one and this one. When you see always, then you must use the simple present tense. If you see now, you must do, you know, see what I mean? It's very easily describable. It's also very easy to test students as well. Okay, yes, it's concrete. It's very easy to test. A student gets it right or wrong, because grammar is, essentially, it's right or wrong, isn't it? You can't have it a little bit wrong. If it's the present, see what I mean? So it's a lot easier to test students. It's less messy. So I think that's why. And it's also a kind, what I've also noticed is this, maybe a little bit of prestige about this little way to maybe to show off your knowledge a little bit.
And my class has come up to future perfect continuous. Maybe.
Oh, congratulations! Yes.
And one of our teachers said we used to come until present perfect continuous in the past. Now that means we have made progress. If we are perfect continuous. Okay, so it's
right.
It's prestigious also, and easy, concrete, easy to teach on the part of the teacher, we can say that. And so that is we from what you said. So what are the underlying principles in teaching grammar? What would you say?
Okay, so when we look at teaching grammar, and obviously teaching grammar has been taught for centuries, hasn't it? I mean, it's even got a kind of a method named after it, grammar translation approach. So grammar is, maybe this is another reason why we are so attached to teaching grammar, because it is so ancient in a way. So what are the principles then? The principles that we are, for one thing, I want to say that, okay, teaching grammar is seen as ancient. However, we do have modern approaches to teaching it now, and this is informed by research on learning psychology, language learning psychology. And I say at the moment the principles are, first of all, explicit or implicit teaching. Okay, so so all the students know that they're learning grammar in a way. Implicit learning is more of the kind of natural acquisition, reflection of the acquisition process there, where it's sort of, how I like to say this in Turkish, sort of çaktırmadan teaching grammar. Okay, we're sort of teaching grammar, but not letting the students know it's actually grammar. We're teaching it through reading or through you know, that kind of thing. Okay, so that's implicit. We've also got inductive and deductive teaching. Deductive teaching is, again, the old, connected to the ancient ways of teaching grammar, which is where we give the rules and then we expect students to practice with it. We also have inductive approaches, which is what we prefer to use these days, which is more like self-discovery. Because with deductive approaches, we assume that students don't know anything. Okay, so it's going from a deficiency base of to tell them what they need to know. Okay, so that's the old way of teaching in a way. With deductive teaching, we realize that actually students are very curious. They have brains that work. They work much more than we give them credit for. And deductive teaching allows students to be more active in the learning of grammar. So we give them examples. We draw their attention to maybe patterns in the language and help them to arrive at the grammatical rule at the end. Okay, so those are some principles there. I would say that it's not either or, they're not interchangeably. I mean, for example, in Turkey, because largely English is a foreign language, though we can argue about that now with digital technologies, but English is a foreign language, maybe, okay, but we can teach explicitly but deductively at the same time, if you see what I mean, so that you're sort of interchangeable. So this is what we could call form-focused instruction, okay, rather than forms-focused. Form-focused instruction then in grammar, it's where you take time. Okay, your overall goal is communication, to be able to use the language communicatively, but at certain points you stop and you draw attention to language patterns. Okay, and we say this is, why do we use it like this? What does this mean? How does it work with other parts of the language? Okay, so that would be form focused, and I think that's certainly with older students, it's useful to do it in that way. Okay, so those are some of the principles. To teach it in a context. That's, I'm sure that all our graduates from ELT departments, if they remember one word ever from their teacher education, it should be context. Because grammar is not, grammar, as I said, it's tied in with listening and speaking and reading and writing. Grammar occurs within a larger piece of language, within a larger piece of discourse. And a lot of that meaning from those individual words in that particular order, that particular syntactic structure, is brought by the context. Okay, so I think contextual grammar teaching, I think, is very important. I've heard from maybe a lot of our trainees, they say, but Hocam, I don't have enough time for context. I can't teach them grammar and context as well. But the thing is, you don't need time for context. Context is how you teach grammar. It's inseparable. Okay, so that's another thing that I would like to stress very much. We cannot remove grammar from the context and expect students to be able to learn it. Having said that, and I think you're probably going to come on to this as well, sometimes adult, okay, they like, you can take it out of the context, you can look at the mechanics of the grammar and you can say, well, why is it like this? Why is it doing that? Why is it used in that way? But the important thing is, again, is to put it back in the context. Okay, so yes, as Hijran says there, contextual grammar we can never forget. Of course, good. Definitely.
Okay, so we have explicit and implicit learning, deductive and inductive. From what you have said, I've taken some notes, and also at the same time jot down the questions. And I can,
yes,
and teach in context, you're saying, and communicatively.
Right.
We had testing, again, we had communicative testing. It's
right.
one of the most important things now. You know, language teaching, especially, of course, English, it starts at very early ages in Turkey, especially in many institutions now, both private and in state schools. We have English classes. But is there a difference in teaching grammar?
Hey, I'm glad you've asked this question. It's one of my favorite ones. The first thing, when we're teaching grammar, when we're teaching anything, what we should be a little bit more learner focused or even learning focused. Okay, because what the individual differences of our students are very important to how to choose how we teach something. So age is one of these. In fact, I'd like to expand the division a little bit more, the categorization. We've got very young learners, teenagers, and adults, okay, who are all very, very different from each other developmentally. Now, with very young learners and young learners, I would say don't teach grammar as we understand it, okay, because grammar, we must remember, grammar is a set of concrete rules. Touch them, they're very difficult to see. Now, with children, they can't deal with abstract ideas. They need here and now solid things to touch, to see. So I wouldn't say we teach grammar with children. We shouldn't teach grammar as we understand it, as we know it. So, for example, what do? We teach, for example, we teach through chunks, okay? Because young learners are not going to be analysing language. They're just going to use it as it's given to them. So, for example, you can be saying, you can be teaching a big red car, okay? I'm doing that. You've taught big red car. So in that chunk, they know that the grammar rule there is that the adjective comes before the noun, and that it should be an adjective regarding size followed by an adjective referring to color. You know, there's a certain order in which you put adjectives in English. Now, if you say that to somebody in their second grade or the fourth grade, they're going to look at you and think, what's that? Okay, but you can just give them plenty of chunks in a story, in a song, in a chant. So it could be things like a big red car, a small grey mouse, a big fat cat. Okay, so those chunks, which are very repetitive, is sort of teaching the students implicitly adjectives and nouns and adjective order without going into the metalinguistic description of that. Remember, young learners, their brains are still developing. They don't have a very, it's very difficult for them to project themselves into the future. It's very difficult for them to remember the past. If you have young children around, they will say, well, yesterday this happened, and actually it happened last year. Or eskiden şunu yapardım. Okay, eskiden was about Monday or something. So children don't have this time perspective the same as adults do. So it's very difficult for them to deal with a lot of the grammatical tense system in English. So it's the same with Turkish. They're learning grammar in the here and now. With teenagers, now I think with teenagers you've got a very lively, active group here psychologically. They're actually an ideal age to start teaching more about language, because the teenage brain is expanding very quickly. It's changing very quickly. It's a very plastic brain. It's going from the here and now of childhood into they can think about the future. What am I going to do? What will I do? They can think about hypotheses as well. If I do this, this will yes. The teenage brain it's got much more perspective of teaching the more abstract ideas of English. Okay, so again, would I teach grammar in a explicit, deductive way with children, teenagers? No, I mean, teenagers, I think, they would get very bored easily. They can deal with language out of context, but I think still they want language that relates directly to their lives and their opinions and their beliefs. So rather than thinking, look, you've grown up now, okay, you're all adults. Actually, they're not all adults, they're teenagers. Okay, they still need to be, I won't say entertained because that gives the wrong idea. They need to be engaged. Okay, the material needs to be engaging. The activities you do needs to make them think and to use the language they're doing there. When it comes on to adults, adults are a completely different set of learners. Their brain has expanded as far as it can. Of course, we've got lifelong learning. It isn't completely fossilized. It definitely isn't fossilized. But adults, what you get here is that, well, in my day, we used to do this. Okay, adults can get very set in their ways. They've got lots of experience of teachers and of language. And when I've had adults learners and I'm trying to teach them to be communicative and like, let's read this, let's talk about this. Why is this here? Why is this ED here, whatever? They start focusing on little details of language and they want me to analyze that language before now. Okay, Turkish is Turkish, English is English. So with adults, you can find them to be very over analytic as well, which can be problematic. I think in a way there are certain things that are easier with adults. You can give them tasks and they realize that sometimes you have to do boring things, or they realize a bit of hard work is necessary, but they can be difficult because they can be very set in their ways and very it's not always easy to open up a new mindset to them. So yes, there's a huge difference at all. Yes.
Okay, so some suggestions from the comments. Our teachers, as far as I understand, they've been using songs, stories for grammar. Turan Hocam says TPR activities with songs, and you also said you chunks. And I think the key is, especially I'm talking about young learners, like the child will know, I like dogs, for example, will know how to say, but he won't know its simple tense, for example, or like the example you given, word order or adjectives or
the connection's getting a little bit bad.
But not, we won't give them the rules because their brains are developing. With teenagers,
So okay. Yes, the connection's a little bit bad at the moment, but I want to point out here about grammar is actually, if you're a teacher teaching in the National Education Service, you have a program. There's a program, the grades 1 to 8, and then 9 to 12. Now, if you look at the English language program, if there's an English language, if you look at the English program for 8th grade to 12th, if you look at the English language grades for 2nd to 8th grade and then 9th to 12th grade, look at the program. It does not say anything about grammar in it. Okay, you are not required to teach grammar. Now, this is something I do with my teaching language skills students, because I hear a lot from teachers around. It's like, I'd love to teach communicatively, but the program means we have to teach grammar translation. Okay, so so what I do at the beginning of every term with my students for grammar, Okay, let's do a search in the PDF, see, and it doesn't come up. Okay, there's no mention of grammar at all. And I'm like, okay, so you're not meant to teach grammar. The program here, so if you look again for the young learners, you will see that you've got functions and chunks and things. You do not ever give them metalinguistic expressions because it just doesn't work. Teenagers don't need it either. Okay, unless you're going to be a translator or an expert in English language and literature, you don't really need all that meta language. Okay, so yes, that's what I would say. You know, just I would suggest that all teachers looked at the Milli Eğitim Bakanlığı program because that's what we do. You know, it doesn't require grammar teaching. Yes, it requires a whole different mindset regarding grammar.
Oh, then can we say that there is this demand for grammar from, I don't know, both parents, teachers, and students? Why is that this too much important? According to the literature, we shouldn't do it. And I'm sure most of the teachers, maybe all of them know that they shouldn't be doing this, but we are doing it. So why is that then?
I think it goes, there's a number of different reasons. I think one thing is maybe they don't know about the program. A lot of teachers are not aware of the program. Another thing is the forces of tradition, maybe. Like this is a general idea that this is how English is taught. So it could be a traditional thing that maybe teachers they were taught. So maybe years and years ago, if they used those old structural books, maybe they want to continue doing it in that way. Parents' demands, it could be because parents have this, again, they've got their own idea about what language learning is. Administration as well. I mean, I think what we've got to remember here is that as teachers, you've been through 4 years of education, of teacher education to teach a foreign language. Some of you have done master's degrees, some of you have done doctorate degrees. Okay, you're the expert in this. Parents aren't, administrators aren't. They're not the experts in this. You know, you have your program here. The program is given by the National Education Ministry, and you are required to do that. So I think sometimes what you can do, if parents are really insistent, you can sort of give, how can I say, give a little bit of what students may be. Okay, so I think that's why tradition is very difficult to break, and I think grammar teaching has become a tradition.
Yeah, and it's very difficult to fight off as an individual. Maybe. Individual teacher, because especially if the other classes are doing it one way or another, sooner or later,
right,
you give up and you surrender, maybe.
Yes, pressure.
And we have yes, some of our viewers, there are all of them are very valuable contributors, and the contributions themselves are also very valuable. I'd like to thank each and every. The books maybe also because it's more secure on the part of the teacher to focus on grammar, and that's why we somehow consider it like a separate entity or a skill maybe, and focus on that, which we shouldn't.
Right,
okay.
Definitely.
So, what are the most common obstacles in teaching grammar?
The most common obstacle in teaching grammar. A good question. I'm not sure how to answer this. Maybe I said the most common obstacle for teaching grammar at the moment is the program, because the program says don't teach grammar. Okay.
And the tradition you have just mentioned. Maybe
Right.
because of tradition,
Yes.
we get stuck, maybe.
Right. I
Okay.
think mindset. I think it's the mindset. I think the obstacle is that we don't. There's more of an obstacle for teaching communicatively than there is for teaching grammar, and I think it's mindset. I think it's tradition. It's very difficult to give up things that you've been doing in a certain way for a long time, and you start to think, you forget that there might be different ways of doing them. So it's useful sometimes just to think of well, why am I doing this? It's like reflective teaching. Why am I teaching in this way? Okay, I'm teaching in this way, but are my students learning? I'd say that was the biggest obstacle, I think, tradition and mindset.
Mm-hmm. And it's like putting aside all the years of teaching we have had at a faculty, and it's actually not in the program in MEP, but we say have to do it in the program. It's in the program and etc. But what are so when we come to the learners, what are the learners' responsibilities in improving their grammar skills? Okay, we focus on them, but still it's very difficult to say that we are really good at teaching grammar in the end. So what can they do? What are their responsibilities?
Well, as with anything, learning happens with the learner. It's the learner who learns at the end of the day. To quote that very much maybe overquoted proverb in English, or it's a proverb in English. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So as a teacher, we can show students what they need to know, how they can learn. We can show them all these things, but at the end of the day, when they go home, when they're sitting there doing whatever they're doing, it's their job to actually improve their skills. In talking about grammar, I mean, I don't really like to separate grammar from skills. I'm sure you've gathered that by now. So I think when they're improving their grammar, the best thing to do is just to read a lot, to listen a lot. I think to get lots and lots of input. And this is a lot easier these days because of technology. Basically, students are able to access a lot more reading material, a lot more visual material than they ever used to be able to. So I think the best way to do for students to do this is just to read a lot, to expose themselves as much as possible, but mindful exposure, not this chaktanmadan or the inshallah approach, as I sometimes call it. They need some guidance from us as well. They need to be able to come teach. I read this today, and why is it used like this? That kind of thing. We should be open to them. But I think reading and listening, watching. In English, they can, what do you call it, doublage, okay, they're sort of dubbed. The ones that have the subtitles, okay, so they can listen and read at the same time, and they can notice certain grammatical expressions there, I think. So they a lot of responsibility for the learner if they really want to do this.
Okay, so they need our guidance.
Yeah.
To learn grammar rules, because it's something abstract in skills, integrated in skills, especially in listening and reading. You have just, and we could have anything magic to support them in learning grammar directly. They should make an effort.
Yes. Definitely. I mean, direct learning of grammar. Students, because they're so used to learning, they will go out and find grammar books and they will do exercises. I mean, I wouldn't say to my student, do lots of exercises, because that's new. They're going to do that anyway. Maybe that anybody can tell them to do that. I mean, I think they need to see grammar as a whole, grammar as a context as well, and to be able to recognize the rules there within a context, to see the patterns as they come up. Because the more you read, the more you see language being used, the more you recognize, the more you can spot certain patterns of language. So that's what I would say, definitely.
Okay. Are there any tools you would suggest, channels that you have heard in YouTube maybe, or anything extra you would say?
Okay, well, again, there's so many opportunities now because of technology. I mean, just by looking through YouTube, you can see things like English through video. So you can see lots of activities made up by little parts, little sketches from authentic material there. So those are quite useful. There's people doing all sorts of things on YouTube. Even some of my students have got their personal endeavors. They've got, created their own Instagram site, for example, where they give an idiom in English, something that's used, common, a modern, currently used idiom. Then they give a meaning. They show a little excerpt from a TV series to show how it's used in real life and everything like that. So there's a lot of teachers making individual efforts as well to practice. Those are a little bit more for teenagers, I think. This commercial ones, I mean, Duolingo. I mean, I think with things like Duolingo, it's quite amazing. You can learn all sorts of language. I mean, my daughter says, "Well, I'm going to learn Norwegian now." I'm like, okay, what? Okay, so what Duolingo is quite useful. I mean, the thing about Duolingo is it's very mechanical, at least, than filling in blanks on a piece of paper. So that's quite a useful tool, I think. The mechanical nature of it, the interactive thing, Duolingo becomes part of your life. It starts threatening you if you don't log in after a few days. It's a whole different world there. I think there'll be more interesting way to practice the mechanics of language.
Oh, I see. Okay, so we're running out of time, hocam. Last week we had suddenly connected. Some people are sharing their ideas. It's nice, tiny Duolingo, and as long as, can we say then, as long as we give, they are young learners or teenagers, it's not a problem. The key is to exposure to language in context, keeping in mind the communication, maybe.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what grammar is for. Grammar is for us to help us to reach that communicative end. Okay, it's not the end in itself. Contextual, absolutely. Authentic materials, authentic as much as possible. Also, materials that are suitable for the cognitive development, the cognitive level of the students as well. So, with repetition, okay, kids love the repetition there. With teenagers, you need more engaging things that are going to be contributing to their identity formation, for their social development as well. So it should be, yeah, contextual, engaging, and meaningful as well. It should just be meaningful. It should be meaningful for the students. Students will learn things that are meaningful for them, that are relevant. Grammatical reasons, then they're not going to be engaged. They're going to forget it. They're not going to learn it.
Okay, Amanda hocam. But we have a question. What do you say about giving no grammar rules but teach a foreign language? Ahmet hocam asks.
Ahmet hocam says what?
Yeah. What do you say about giving no grammar rules but teach a foreign language? Many people achieved it this way, he says, and maybe, I don't know, without giving the rules, I think. Yeah.
Let me have a look. And I didn't see I didn't get the question there. Oops,
Okay.
some strange things happening.
Ahmet Hocam, I think Amanda Hoca answered that question when she talked about implicit and explicit teaching and deductive and inductive ways of teaching. Maybe that part, we talked about that and whether it's a skill, why people focus on that. Maybe in another context, I'll try to ask that question. And have a lot of comments and saying that they've been missing you so much. Smile and you make people smile as well. And I can feel that energy as well. Thank you very much. So we have so many questions and comments. Thank you, but we have run out of time because we have another program starting in a minute, so we have to focus on that. People at this time of the day in an English speak chat, it's been a very beneficial and fruitful conversation. Amanda Hocam, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's been a great pleasure. Just if I've got enough time just to say this, that grammar rules are put there by people, okay, and they're not fixed. So if we're very rule focused, then we're missing out on the larger picture altogether. Rules change a lot. Okay, so I'd say that keep an open mind about language and about teaching. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Hope to see you in another program of ours, maybe in a webinar if you would spare some time. We'll be delighted to